We're seeing more and more of these headlines. Parents who won't vaccinate their kids turn to homeschooling in California, the data shows. Same thing is happening in New York. Anti-vaccination groups in New York push homeschooling. This is where the world's going. Is homeschooling a threat? Is it a benefit? What is it? And how do we do it? Lots of questions around this issue for many people that came up through a schooling system, many of whom still are just buying the machine, buying what they're supposed to be told. I'll tell you, one of the reasons I think I'm sitting here is actually because I personally was homeschooled from 4th grade till 10th grade. I always say to people, you may not want to vaccinate your kid unless you want them in the kind of trouble I find myself in right now. But if you are thinking about homeschooling, then there's some great voices out there, like this one I met at Acapulco that blew up the stage and came on the scene celebrating the benefits of homeschooling. This is David Rodriguez.
How many of you want children to reach their fullest potential? For me, I believe education is about building skills, knowledge, and character. And education is about taking responsibility for your life. And education is about identifying and pursuing your mission in this lifetime. The school system was designed to create obedient workers. My kids are never going to government school. I don't care what it takes. This is your life. This is your mind. This is the mind of your child. How precious is that?
Joined by David Rodriguez, who has been a champion of homeschooling. There's a lot of questions out there. I know that we started homeschooling when the laws were passed, when SB 277 was about to pass in California. I was in the middle of making Vaxxed, and I asked the teacher, actually the head of our school, private school, a Waldorf school, we said, if they decide that, say, somebody says they have whooping cough or something at the school and suddenly there's a quarantine, or they decide to lock down and start force vaccinating children, will you give us a call so we can come and pick up our child? And the head of the school says, I'll do whatever the state says I have to do. And I said, then I'm going to do what I have to do as a parent. I'm pulling my child out of school, and we started homeschooling almost immediately. A lot of you have questions. So we reached out to the ICANN Angels. That's what we're calling those of you that are donating on a monthly basis, a recurring donation to help us do the work we're doing. As you saw at the top of the show, we're not getting funding from sponsors or anything like that. You are what keep this going. As you know, we've won 3 lawsuits against government health agencies, the National Institute of Health, Health and Human Services. We just settled a case with the FDA. We got some amazing cases around the country. I'll only talk about them once we've won them, and they're looking really good. But all of that, those donations make this possible. And so for those of you that are making that commitment to helping us out, we're going to start trying to be a little more interactive with you. So we reached out to those of you that are on a recurring donation, our ICANN Angels, to see what questions you had about homeschooling. So first of all, thank you for joining me, David.
Hey,
really appreciate you being here. I got some questions here, but first let's just talk about, homeschooling. Is homeschooling growing in America?
Absolutely. Homeschooling is on fire. One, because of the forced vaccines, there's a Common Core curriculum, and then the compulsory system as a whole has failed children. If you go back to the roots of what John Taylor Gatto showed us, the school system was designed to create obedient people for the military and for obedient citizens. So it's failing in a huge
well, it's working if that's its goal.
Well, you're right. It's succeeding.
Right,
it's succeeding. Parents are starting to look for different options. So this is why we promote homeschooling, voluntary schooling, democratic schooling. We'll talk about this more in the show here, but it's on the rise, and people are looking for solutions because it's no longer acceptable what's happening in these schools, vaccines, and all the rest.
So tell me, you said John Taylor Gatto.
Yeah, G-A-T-T-O.
Okay, Gatto. What's his deal? Who is that? I mean, that's someone that I've heard you talk about before. Just give me a sense of who that is.
He was a 2-time New York State Teacher of the Year and taught for 30 years. And so the way you become that successful is you help a lot of people in the community. So they voted him to be this great accoladed teacher. And then he went down the rabbit hole of why are there bells in the school system? Why is it broken up into 40-minute sections? Where did it come from? And he found the primary sources. The system came from Prussia, Germany in 1852, got imported. And as I mentioned, the military, obedient citizens. And so it's not meant to empower and inspire and help you reach your full potential. It's actually meant to limit children. And so that's what he said, man, we might as well throw sand on the gears rather than trying to change the system, because it's a huge bureaucracy. The largest political lobby in the country is the National Education Association. They've got over 3 million members, so they're a force to be reckoned with. And so rather than trying to change it from the inside, he was working in his own school, classroom to make a laboratory and empowering people to do their own things. He would mark them as present in the classroom and then let them go to the library and pursue their own little apprenticeships and things and get out of the classroom. And so he's impacted thousands of students.
Awesome. All right, great. So this is a passion of yours. Let's go ahead and just go through some of these questions just to get this conversation going. This is from Tracy again. These are our ICANN angels writing in. I would like to know if there is a difference in outcomes for children who are homeschooled following a defined curriculum versus children that are unschooled. Quotes. I am leaning towards unschooling, but want to be sure my child has the skills needed to pursue any future career of his choice. Will he be able to get in the colleges if needed?
Right. So unschooling, in my opinion, is the height of education. And I define it as 100% self-directed learning. So just like you and all the viewers out there, we pursue stuff that we're interested in. We don't need compulsion or people forcing us to do things. And then the curriculum question, you got to go to the root of the word curriculum, which means a course or a path. So life is a journey, as you might know. So everyone's on their own course and path. So rather than having someone say, this is the way you should go, you know, as Gatto says, an education should be as unique as your fingerprints. So just like we're so unique genetically and personality-wise, we want to pursue our own interests in that aspect. So I would say unschooling is definitely the height, the apex of what we're aiming for, but it's better than, let's say the defined curriculum is better than the forced school system where you have, let's say, 30 students to one teacher. You have kind of one size fits all. It's harming children, their minds. It's removing their dreams. It's so bad.
Thing with unschooling. I mean, it seems to me that if I just let my kid focus, especially my son, if you just do whatever you want to do, I think he's going to play video games all day. I mean, we don't really allow screens, but, you know, every weekend you get 10 minutes an hour. If I said, do what drives you, do what you're focused on, I'm not sure that my kid's going to say, oh, you know what I really want to do? I want to learn algebra today. Right. Or you know what I really want to do? I want to, you know, I want to read Mein Kampf, or I want to read, you know, the Bible, or I want to read, you know, whatever the hell it is that they're interested in. Correct. And to study. Why would they do that? Instead, aren't they just going to lay around and be lazy and watch TV and play video games and say, hey, Dad, this is what I'm focused on?
Right. Possibly. There's 5 stages of education that I recommend to my clients. The first one is forced schooling, which is default. The next one is deschooling. So just like when you shake up a bottle of soda and there's all this pressure in there, after a child's been in the compulsory environment for so many years, you have to let that cap off and let that pressure decimate out of the bottle because they're under pressure. It's stress. From deschooling, you go to school at home. So first you take the curriculum to the table, at the kitchen table. So we're doing classroom at home. Yeah. The next one is homeschooling. I define homeschooling as when a leader creates an atmosphere where personalized learning can occur. And then from there, I think it's very similar to unschooling itself. So it's hard to go directly from the forced schooling system directly to unschooling. However,
you work your way into it.
You work your way into it, and then ideally, you know, like someone's graduate high school at age 18, they say, congratulations, what do you do with your life? So that's a question you don't have to answer when you're 18. How about when you're 15 or when you're 13 or 12?
So the question goes on, what are the odds you're going to get into college, though? I mean, don't you have to be able to show, you know, you've done some tests, that you have learned, like you went on your own, you unschooled, you followed your whim. How do you get into college after that?
Well, see, here's the thing. The admissions directors are looking for superstars. Why? Because college is a business. It's a huge business. So they want people to succeed. They don't want to have someone join as a freshman and then quit. They want someone to go through the whole process and then graduate, and off they go. And they say, wow, that person was successful. Where did they attend college? They went to Harvard or Yale or MIT. So their whole talent recruitment is their secret. So when they're looking at an application, they actually reject perfect GPAs, valedictorians all the time, high SAT scores, because unfortunately many of these kids are just conformists. They want unique individuals. They want people who have a track record of success. And so what
self-starting, I would think, and an ability to be motivated.
Yeah, people that started their own business when they're 14, people that created their own art project or music festival or something that's unique. So when they see it, they say, this person's 15, 17, they have a future.
Makes sense.
So because of the unschoolers, they come through the home and mom and dad love on them, empower them. And so by the time they put the application in, the director says, this is going to be a good person. So off they go into the world as a graduate. They're going to put their stamp on them. versus, let's say, some other school that doesn't have that ability to do that.
I know that when we were looking into it, someone told me, and I had a friend that unschooled child ended up going back into just the last couple years of high school just to sort of get that social experience, and was valedictorian, grades through the roof upon entry. And you know what they were saying to me is the reason we trust this is we were told that your child can learn all the academics actually in the last year, that 12th year, if they had just bailed all the other 11 years of grades. The way their brain's working, they could actually just catch up that fast. Obviously, you don't want to do that, but the human mind's capable of that. From Chloe, what platforms online would you recommend for online homeschool learning?
There's a few of them. I like Udemy. I like Coursera. I like Creative Live. OutSchool. And what's important for parents to think about is that there are platforms, but in education, really, we have to redefine what's going on here. What is an education? In my opinion, an education is what you do to yourself to create a good life. And so that's personal for each person. What is a good life? And then the word education comes from the root educo, which means to draw from within, to pull out. So I believe, and just like Buckminster Fuller, he said, every child's a born genius. The problem is they get de-geniused trying to please their teachers and please their parents. Or Pablo Picasso said, every child's a born artist. So every child's brilliant and genius in their own way. There's platforms, but as mom and dads are homeschooling, you want to have a context of what are we after? What do you desire for your child? And most of my clients, people say, I want a happy child. I want a healthy child, and someone who's going to be independent and productive in life. So if you're focusing on those simple goals that you desire, and of course, most important is the goals of your son or daughter, right? This is their life, you know. So rather than saying like this is like a possession of mine, like a child, I believe parents are guardians and protectors, and you have been entrusted for a short period of time. Where now it's like, okay, at some point you're going to flap your wings and leave the nest, and hopefully you can use platforms as I mentioned, but understanding what you're after, and of course.
I would imagine, like, and I would think different kids are different and different parents are different. I think some parents may want a little less, like, to have to really run the show. We can put down a curriculum. When I was homeschooled, my mom used a curriculum. I got a full stack of books, all self-taught. So mostly it was sort of my creative side, music and things like that. My mom got involved with. The rest of the time I had the books. It seemed to work pretty well. But I would guess that different kids are different. Some are self-starters, and unschooling is a fascinating thought to me. All right, this is from Valerie. One state does not require vaccine records or exemptions of homeschooled students. We homeschooling parents, our state does not require vaccine records or exemptions of homeschooled students. We homeschooling parents debate the risks and benefits of procuring religious exemptions for our children. What say you? Should they? They don't need exemptions. They're not being asked to have exemptions, but I guess they're saying if in the future things are going to shift, should they be getting an exemption anyway while they're in homeschooling?
Are we talking about vaccine exemptions?
Vaccines, I would guess, vaccine exemptions. So,
just like you mentioned before, right? We declare our independence, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and property. So there's unalienable rights. This is a fact that we already decided 200 years ago. So the state is a criminal organization, in my opinion, that steals and robs and maims people. So when they put all these rules on you, you can participate a little bit, but if they start overreaching, I recommend you disobey civilly, you know. But if you want to participate,
signing yourself up, don't put yourself on a list. An exemption is essentially, I mean, putting yourself on some sort of list already, is it not?
Right, they put you on a list, and then if they want to, you know, bring around or cause trouble later, call CPS or these kind of things. I mean, as we know with the forced vaccine issue, this is a fight for body autonomy. Who owns your body? Who owns your life? Right? This is the essence of the question. So parents, of course, do your own thing. This is not legal advice, but participate if you want. But I think the real revolution or the evolution is that you own your body.
Comply.
I will not comply, you know, and this is what Thoreau said, Martin Luther King, you have an obligation to disobey immoral laws. So at what point do you draw the line in the sand? And this is what Gatto said. He said, there's been no progress in humanity by negotiation. There's always been a line in the sand and saying, if you cross this line, I will kill you. Yes. So I'm not promoting violence, but I'm promoting courage and understanding your natural rights as a human being are in your body, your God or nature, whatever you believe, and to participate. I mean, these are our kids, and the state comes through and gives the compulsory attendance laws. Could you imagine forcing somebody to be in a building against their will, let alone be in a building and then be injected with poison and toxins and have no liability? I mean, this is a tragedy in America right now.
unbelievable.
So to get your kids out of the system, I think is one of the key solutions.
Okay, so, and this is a question that I have. In a state like California, what is a better choice, homeschool charters or filing a private school affidavit? This is something that I'm still confused on it. My wife and I were like, it was like to us a coin toss, but it does seem that one would have to be a better choice than the other. I know this is a question for a lot of people right now in California. So the question is, you can either register yourself as a homeschool charter, which is my understanding, you're sort of a part of almost like a private school system, or you can just have a private school affidavit. Or is that the private? Which one is the private school? Which one is locking me into
Private
the system?
school is basic freedom. You sign up this document online, you mail it in. Actually, it's online, so you don't have to mail it in.
Okay.
But then you're free, and you don't have to participate with the state in general. I mean, there's some basic attendance and curriculum policies, and we can talk about that later. The charter, the reason that's attractive is you get some kind of stipend sometimes. So sometimes they'll give you $1,000 a year, $1,500 a year.
So some of the money you're paying in taxes to go to these public schools,
you kind of get it back.
You get a little bit back to help you do the homeschooling.
The challenge there is you'll have an auditor who will come to your home every quarter or so, and you got to show them some documents and show them some worksheets and stuff, and it's like, well, that becomes headache and stressful, and now they're gonna, make a check by your name, and they're not obeying the, the lines or instructions. So my whole deal is freedom. I love freedom. I think freedom versus slavery is the issue of our lifetime. So, little by little, you can participate in that. So I recommend the private school affidavit.
Okay, great.
Charter's fine too. As I mentioned, the 5 steps.
But I think the question would be, like, if we see them manipulate the laws, we know that homeschoolers right now are exempt from having to vaccinate, but we're hearing the language in California, New York, and all over public spaces. These kids are a danger. We know where this is going, but I think the question is it possible? I mean, when it says private school affidavit, my concern would be you're calling yourself a private school. The law, SB 277, affects private schools, public and private schools. By calling myself a private school, am I at risk for them saying, actually, you're a private school, you have to vaccinate? I mean, do you guys think about things like this?
Yeah, so I would say gradually they'll get there. They do one step at a time. However, homeschoolers are fierce. Mothers and fathers, they fight, we fight, so they don't want to have that battle. I think there's, conservatively, they say there's over 2 million homeschoolers in the country. I think it's probably closer to 3, 4, maybe 5. There's different estimates that show it's that large.
We see more and more headlines, like Harvard's new line, is really getting more and more homeschoolers going into Harvard. And these Ivy League schools really, as you said, are enjoying these homeschoolers. And I've even heard rumors that they stopped, I don't know if this is true, but I heard in Texas that they stopped posting the SAT scores and things from homeschoolers because they were just so outpacing the public school system.
Yep. Yeah, it's very possible. They don't want to see the contrast. And a lot of Hollywood people are like in the closet homeschoolers and people that are under the radar. But I think what's happening, the surge is building. And at some point, it's just going to pop and people are going to realize homeschooling's awesome.
Right.
Because like when I was growing up, maybe you too, it's like homeschoolers are kind of weird. And
I was weird.
All the
Like I said, I was homeschooled. It was a little bit weird, And I remember my mom, she just told me recently, she said, why do you think we moved to the mountains? I was like, weren't you worried about it? And it was almost illegal in Colorado at the time. Like, it really wasn't. I feel like now it's much more embraced. We know about it. But my mom was like, why do you think we moved to the mountains? Why do you think we moved somewhere where the neighbors couldn't see you? I didn't want them being, calling Child Protective Services because you were out, planting in the garden in the middle of the afternoon when you were supposed to be in school. It was something that, like, all those stresses my parents were taking on that I never thought about. You're just sort of going along. And then there was that weird moment that I wanted to go back into high school, and we had to sit there and explain, and she said, take whatever test. But luckily, we'd done a curriculum, and I took some tests, and they said, this looks acceptable, and I moved my way in. Yeah. What do you think, we're sort of running out of time here. What is it for people that are really questioning this, or questioning, I'm not a teacher, I'm not designed to teach my child, I'm afraid that they're just going to end up, because I think that's the biggest concern. I think if you're at this point, if you're not vaccinating, you're already accepting that you've gone against the grain. You're going up, you're going upstream now. So I don't think there's a fear of like what people think or how they look. I think the actual concern really is, am I doing what's right for my kid? And are there people, I guess here's the question, are there people that really just shouldn't homeschool?
No, I don't think so. I think because parents have a vested emotional future with the child. Unfortunately, there's a lot of good teachers out there. My mother's a retired school teacher. I got family members that are in the system now as teachers and principals, good, loving people, but they're not going to be around in 2 years and 3 years. As a mother and father, you are going to be around in 5 and 10 and 50 years. You have a vested interest, and the ultimate lesson in life, I believe, is love. Love is the lesson. And so you are demonstrating that to them, and they'll look into your eyes and be, I'm loved. You know, they want to be accepted as they are versus having the, scarlet letter of failure or whatever it is on them. And so parents, every parent can do it. It's a process. The challenge is that if you went to public school, you have the same schooly mind. And this is also what Gatto distinguishes between an education and a schooling. Schooling is what someone else does to you, and education is what you do to yourself.
Interesting.
So again, having that long-term future, and also defining what is success. What do you define as success? Is it money? Is it relationships? Is it happiness? Is it health? All those things is up to you, mom and dad, and then ultimately up to your child, and having that long-term future, because I don't think attending college is success. I think living a fulfilled, purposeful, meaningful life is one definition of success, and I think if the child can learn to define that for themselves, and also mom and dad, I think they're on the right path.
Fantastic, man. So just really quickly, what are some websites maybe if we want to follow the work or follow up with you, or things that you recommend that we look into right now?
Yeah, so I'm at homeschoolleader.com. I have a Facebook group called Homeschool Leader as well. I'll have something at the apprenticeship creator group next for like the teens, and I do homeschool consulting. I do accelerated graduation through Valor Academy as well, so I can graduate teenagers that are sick of the system, whether they're 14 or 16, and get them out of the system and get them onto community college, or also do some apprenticeship consulting and construction. But the whole purpose is to get them out of the school system. You know, I worked with John Gatto for about 5 years before he passed last year, and so now I started the Gatto Project, which is an acronym for Get All the Thinkers Out of Forced Schools. Coercion is the problem, and I think freedom is the answer. And so I'm here to help. You can join the Facebook group. It's free. You're doing great work here, and I can't wait to talk with you further.
David, really, really good stuff.
Yeah,
Thank
appreciate you.
Well, look, let's say you did decide to homeschool. What if you really, do you really even have a choice to homeschool? If you cannot, if you have to poison your child to put them into a public school, is it really even a choice?